We're now going to calculate the area of a rectangle or square where the units of the length or breadth do not correspond to the units of area. So if we take a look at part A, we have a rectangle. We're told its length is 13 millimeters, its breadth is 5 centimeters, but the area must be in millimeters squared. So that tells us that if the area is in millimeters squared, then the length and the breadth have to be both in millimeters before we work out the area. So the problem here is that the breadth is not in millimeters. We have to change the breadth into millimeters. So the first thing we're going to write down is change breadth into millimeters. Now, the breadth at the minute is in centimeters and we want to change it into millimeters. So remember, you're changing a bigger unit, centimeters is bigger, into a smaller unit. Remember, you multiply. Bigger into smaller, you multiply. And we're multiplying the 5 by 10. So 5 times 10 is going to give us 50 millimeters. Okay, changing bigger unit into smaller unit, we are multiplying. There's 10 centimeters in 1 millimeter. So 50 millimeters. So now we can get the area. So we put our title area down, write out the formula for the area of any rectangle or square. Area A equals length multiplied by breadth. What we're then going to do is sub in the length and the breadth. So the length and the breadth have to be both in millimeters. So the length is in millimeters, so it's just 13. And we're multiplying by the breadth, which is not 5, it's 50 millimeters. And again, to multiply 13 by 50, split 50 up, treat 50 as 5 multiplied by 10. So we're going to multiply 13 by 5 and then multiply the result by 10. So 5 3s are 15, 5 10s are 50, 50 plus 15 is going to give us 65, and then we're multiplying 65 by 10, that's going to give us 650, and the units are going to be millimeters squared because the length and the breadth were in millimeters. So our final answer is just 650 millimeters squared. Okay, part B. So part B, the area has to be in centimeters squared. So that means the length and breadth have to be in centimeters. Now the problem is they're both in meters. So we have to change meters into centimeters for the length and the breadth. So we're going to have to change length and breadth into centimeters. Now, the length and breadth are both in meters, so we're changing from meters into centimeters. So we're changing from a bigger unit into a smaller unit. Remember to multiply. So we're multiplying 4 by 100 and we're multiplying 5 by 100. So the new length is going to be 400 centimeters. And the value for the breadth in centimeters is going to be 500. Now that the length and breadth are in centimeters, we can work out the area. So area. So write out our formula. Area of any rectangle or square is length multiplied by breadth. And then we're going to sub in the values. So the length was 400. We're multiplying by the breadth, which is 500. Now again, the easy way to multiply is to split 400 up. Treat 400 as 4 multiplied by 100. And also split 500 up and treat that as 5 multiplied by 100. So what we're going to do is multiply the non-zero digits together. So 4 times 5 is going to give us 20. We're going to multiply 20 by 100. So you multiply a whole number by 100, you just put 2 zeros on after it. And then we're going to multiply this whole number by another 100. So we're going to just put 2 more zeros on after it. So we're going to be left with 200,000. And the units are going to be centimetres squared, because the length and breadth were now both in centimetres. So our final answer, 200,000 centimetres squared. Okay, part C. So part C, the length is in metres and the breadth is in centimetres, and our answer has to be in metres squared. So if the area is in metres squared, that means length and breadth both have to be in metres. The length is fine, but the breadth is not. So we're going to have to change breadth into, we're going to change the breadth into metres. So our title, change breadth into metres. Now this time we're changing centimetres into metres. We're changing a smaller unit into a bigger unit. Remember we said when it's smaller being changed into bigger unit, we actually divide. So we're going to be dividing by 100 here to change centimetres into metres. So 1200 divided by 100 is just going to leave us with 12 metres. Okay, so just be very careful. Then we're going to work out our area now. So write down our formula. Area of any square or rectangle, A is equal to length multiplied by breadth. Copy down our equals. So the length is 18 metres. We're multiplying by the breadth, which is now 12 metres. So we're now going to multiply 18 by 12. So again, we can use long multiplication here in this situation to help us. So write it out, 18 multiplied by 12. So start with our 2 units. 2 eighths will give us 16, carry 1. 2 ones are 2, plus 1 will give us 3. We put a 0 down in our units column because we've used up the 2 units. So that now just allows us to multiply by the 110. 1 times 8 is 8. 1 times 1 is 1. And then we add our 2 separate answers together. So we're going to have 6. We're going to have 11. So 1 carry 1. 1 and 1 will give us 2. So our final answer is going to be 216, and the units are metres squared because the length and breadth were both in metres. So our final answer, 216 metres squared. Okay, example D. So in example D, we want the area of the rectangle to be in kilometres squared, and the length and the breadth are both in metres. So we're going to have to change both of these metres into kilometres. So we're going to have to change the length and the breadth into kilometres. So change length and breadth into kilometres. Now, we're changing metres into kilometers. We're changing a smaller unit into a bigger unit. Remember, changing smaller unit into bigger unit, you divide. So we're going to be dividing 8,000 by 1,000. So that's just going to give us 8 kilometers. And we're also going to be dividing 4,000 by 1,000, and that's just going to give us 4 kilometers. So please be careful. Really easy to make a mistake here. When you're changing a smaller unit into a bigger unit, you divide. When you're changing a bigger unit into a smaller unit, you multiply. So both the length and the breadth are now in kilometers. So now we're going to get the area in kilometers squared. So write down our title, area. Write down our formula. Area of any square or rectangle is length multiplied by breadth. And then sub in the length and the breadth. So the length is 8 kilometers. We're multiplying by the breadth, which is 4 kilometers. And then that's just going to give us 32. And the units are going to be kilometers squared. So our final answer is just 32 kilometers squared.